Okay, everyone. So in our last type of class that we're working with in OLP underscore GUI2, we made it so that we have two functions that run. We increment it by one when we say hello frame world, and then we add 10 onto it when we press this other button. So it's straightforward enough, but one type of concept that we can see here, and this is a concept of object-oriented programming and why it's useful, is that we can actually attach the widgets that we've made in one class onto another class. And essentially what this means, in a very artistic sense here, is that if I made a little frame that's up here, and I have two buttons inside of it, and let's just say that later on down the road, maybe in a week or so, I create another button that's just a single frame. I can simply say, hey, you know what? I don't want to have to recreate all the code to make these buttons again. I don't have to redo all that self.data and stuff. What I can do is simply grab this frame and attach it onto this frame over here. And we do that by using processes of object-oriented programming. So essentially you attach the frame into there like so. And what will happen now is that you actually have a newly created GUI with all these buttons made. And this is essentially what we're going to be doing in this lecture, where we try to figure out how we can attach previously made GUIs onto another one. And it's a little tricky at the start because of some of the syntax, and you might run into a few errors. But again, the general process is there, and we're going to use some ideas of importing and passing around arguments. So what I went ahead and did is I created a new Java file called OOP underscore GUI2 extended. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Now, if you go ahead and you open up this Java file, it should be blank for us. Let's go ahead and close out of this one. I have a few files open real quick. Awesome. So after you go ahead and you open up this guy, the first thing I'm going to do, because this is a tkinter class, is import tkinter into my code. And now I'll also want to try to make sure that this is having that previous class attached onto it. And what is the widgets? What widgets do I want onto it? Well, I want to try to add on the widgets from the hello class that I just created into this extended class. So what I can say here is from OOP underscore GUI2 import hello. And where am I getting this import hello from? Well, hello is a class inside of OOP underscore GUI2, and that's where I'll get them from. Now, what I could say here now is I can create a class called hello extended, and I can make it inherit from a frame. And you might be tempted to say, can I put hello in here? But for the time being, we're not literally inheriting from this class. We're not inheriting the methods or the widgets from this class of hello. We're just modifying it so that we can attach its widgets onto ours. And you'll see later how we can also use a bit of inheritance in a later example. But for the time being, let's just see if we can do it this way. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to try to create myself initializer and set it to none. And later on in my code, I want to try to make a button that's called exit, which pretty much closes my program. That's what I want a button that I'm going to create to do. And I also want to add in those two other buttons that self.data have. Now you'll see here, if I want an exit that closes my button, excuse me, a button that closes my program, what I'm going to need to have access to is actually the parent. So this parent is being brought into my code right here. We're setting it to none, but this self.parent is actually has access to a few commands. And one command it has access to is the .destroy command. And .destroy will essentially close out of your program in the same manner as hitting X at the top right of my code up here will do. So whenever you do self.parent.destroy, it just exits your program. So what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to go ahead and try to initialize my frame the same way that I did it over here with myself and parent. But once I've initialized it with this parent parameter, it is technically none at the time being, but our frame has a parent that it's working with. It's its hierarchy, or excuse me, it's like the top level frame. I'm going to go ahead and set this self.parent equal to parent. And this is something that I haven't done over here. And the reason we're doing this in this scenario is only because I want access to this exit command that I'm using later. You don't necessarily need to do it this way. If you just want to add in a button that simply does something like add in times something by 2, you can do that way. In fact, after we do it this way, we can try it the other way too. Now, similar to what I did before, I'm going to do self.pack again to pack up all these guys. And what I want to do here, after I go ahead and try to pack everything, is I'm going to go ahead and make a command that says make widgets. And let's see here, if I have my make widgets of self, I'm going to go ahead and say self.make widgets, and I'll say button self text is equal to exit. And the command that I have here is going to be self.parent.destroy. And I'm going to pack this button at the very top. Now, what I'm going to try to do here is after I go ahead and I import all these pieces of code here that I have up at the top, what I would like to do is I'm going to say root is equal to tk, similar to the tkinter that we had before. And what I'm going to do is there's one issue that we might run into is that when I import this hello class, it might actually try to run something down here. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to say hello plus root.main loop. And we can fiddle around. Let's see here. Oops, daisy. Let me make sure that I'm running this module. And you'll notice here that we're getting this error where it's actually seemingly running my other frame, despite me running it in OOP underscore GUI2 extended. And what might be happening here is let's try to comment out this guy up here. And you'll notice here, oops. Sorry, this is from the example. I'll use hello extended. Sorry about that. You'll notice here that now it's not running that other file that we had there. And what might be, what is happening here is because of this import statement, it's going to try to run the frame that's over here. And this is where you will encounter a few errors that occur. And one more thing here is that I actually forgot to make my widgets here. So I'm going to say self.make widgets like so. And now we'll see that when I hit exit, it's just going to exit my program like so. And the reason that I'm providing this root parameter here is you'll see that if I don't provide that parameter, it says that the object of none type has no attribute destroy. So we want to provide this root parameter, which defaults to none. Once we provide this root parameter, it's going to have access to this destroy method. Again, that is something similar that we saw before with the dog classes. But now you'll see this is running fine, and when I exit, I close out the program. Weirdly enough, though, if I go ahead and I uncomment this import statement, I am actually running the other frame. So this isn't really what I want to do. How do I go about attaching the widgets of this guy? I want to only run this one, and it's running the other one. Well, why don't we try, first of all, trying to comment out this guy and seeing if we can run this program here. And if I try running this one now, you see we're still kind of getting the same TK. And if we take a look at it afterwards, you might see that my frame of exit pops up. So there's a bit of a weird thing going on here. Let's hit exit on this. And let's take one more look at our code here. We'll notice that we have a piece of code up here with a comment that says attach widgets to self. And if I try to uncomment this one up here as well, we'll see that we're still kind of getting the same error. So how do I actually go ahead and solve this issue where it's running this other frame? Well, inside of my make widgets function of my newly extended class, remember this is the class that I want to attach these guys onto, what I can say is, hey, go ahead and grab hello from GUI2. And again, hello takes in a parameter of self, essentially, because it is attached to the frame. Provided the parameter of self, which is the current frame that I'm in, and pack it at the bottom of my current frame. And now essentially what will happen in this scenario is that if I'm packing it onto this guy, it should go ahead and just attach it underneath my other code. And again, I'm packing it at the side of the bottom, and this is on the top. And now if I run my code, we'll see that instead of running hello frame world and add 10 to data, it's put into the bottom. Now, does this work if I run it? And this is one of the concepts of OOP, right? So now you'll see that when I run this GUI, I have access to my add 10 to data, my add 1 to data, and I don't have any of that code inside of here. And does my exit work? Yes, my exit works. So to go ahead and get a bit more involved with this, and this is where we can have instance variables of each class, I can go ahead and create another data variable inside of this class, set it equal to 0. I can go ahead and make another, I'm going to call this multiply. I believe that's spelled right. And what I could say is self.data times equals 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and say print, here is data from hello extended. And then I can dot format that, and then I can say self.data. Let's try to run it as this guy. Oops. Oh, those are, sorry about that. I had brackets instead of parentheses right there. There we go. Cool. So now if I go ahead and I run this guy, after I attach it, I can hit multiply. Oops, it's at 0. Let me put this to 1 really quick. Set multiply, so I get it all the ways up there, and then I can add 1, or I can add 10. And again, everyone, this is from the Hello Extended class, and the only reason this is working is because I'm attaching it or packing it in my make widgets function over to this guy. And you'll see here that if I get rid of that piece of code, it's actually going to go ahead and not attach it at all, and we only get the multiply that's running on. Now, another thing that you'll notice here is that the reason that we have this fancy if underscore name is equal to main is essentially because when we import this from hello, it's going to try to run something. And essentially what this is saying is that if this code is being ran from an import, essentially over here, if I hit run and run module, this code will check if we're running it from over there. And now if we aren't running it from over here, if we're going ahead and we're actually running it from this main method, it's going to go ahead and run that code. Otherwise, if it's not, we will go ahead and try to multiply. And again, we can kind of see this laid out in here. If I have my ran from main, like so. If I go ahead and I run this code, we'll see ran from main run right here. If I go ahead and I run this code after the import, we'll see that I have no print statement of ran from main. So again, that's the reason that we go ahead and we run this one. And there's one more little check. Let's see what happens if I go ahead and I get rid of this hello and attach the widgets to itself, and I just make self right here. Seems like this works just fine on our end. And let's see what happens over here. Looks like it's working just as well. But again, because we are using this between two ones, it might be helpful to use the hello.makeWidgets. And over here we use self.makeWidgets. But another way that you can do it this way is to say hello extended reference, hello extended.makeWidgets, and provide yourself the parameter of self. And that's another way that you can do this too. Again, everyone, there's not a surefire way to do it. Either way is acceptable for it, but this is one way you could approach creating these classes. So this is one way that you can go ahead and without using OOP, without having to rely on inheritance from a specific class, how to attach it to your class using just built-in packing in your OOP code.